It's Matt Sager, and I always hate to have bad news to start a podcast with, but this is important. It's important that we remember, honor, and commemorate great ones that we've lost, and we've lost a giant in the world of comics. On Thursday night, June 11th, Denny O'Neil, among the most influential and important writers, editors, and creators on Batman, co-creator of the amazing Green Lantern, Green Arrow, hard-traveling Heroes era comics, a man who is largely responsible for my literacy today. I learned to read from his Batman run in the early 70s. A true creative giant, gone, and a real loss for the world and for comics. He died at 81 after having had a life filled with joy, filled with incredible creative contributions to the world. It was a death of natural causes. Honestly, if we could all live to 81 having had the amazing life of a Denny O'Neil, that is something to aspire to. Not to be depressing, but death is never a happy subject, and this is a big loss. He taught several comics writing courses in his later years, and it is now to my eternal regret that I never got to study under Denny O'Neil. This man who, again, taught me to read, more so than school, more so than my parents. I don't think they even tried. I think they were like, what is he doing with those comics, little idiot? I was enchanted and enraptured, excited, and I learned about mystery and detectives, action and adventure, and fear at the age of we're talking 3, 4 years old, courtesy of Denny O'Neil. He didn't just revitalize these characters on Batman, Green Lantern, and Green Arrow. He propelled the medium of comics forward, made them socially relevant, made history. Everyone pays tribute in one form or another these days to their social cause, be it LGBTQ+, people of color, income inequality, or in some cases, there are super conservative creators who have messages to do with that. None of this would be possible without the social justice and freedom to speak about it and address it and have it be a major backdrop, have it be the milieu in which superheroes live, act, and fight, have it be what they are fighting in many cases for. This going back to the 1960s. Green Lantern and Green Arrow, my God, what a seismic shift he brought to comics with that title. We've all seen that amazing cover of Green Lantern and Green Arrow walking in on a young Roy Harper, Speedy, injecting himself with heroin, and Green Arrow going, "My ward, Speedy is a junkie." This stuff had never been talked about in comics before. It's not talked about now. Denny O'Neil was a trailblazer, a black man asking Green Lantern, "You've done so much for the purple skins. How about the people here on Earth with black skin?" And Green Lantern not having an answer, going on the road with Green Arrow, Black Canary to try and find out just what superheroing is for. Who are we really trying to help and why? 10 years prior, comics were simply 4-color punch-em-ups for the most part. Denny O'Neil represented an evolution in the art form, and he continued over the years in so many different ways and with so many different characters, titles, and runs, to leave his profound imprints all over the comic landscape. Title after title, book after book, character after character. I, for instance, really loved his run on The Question in the 80s. He wrote Superman vs. Muhammad Ali, illustrated by his frequent creative collaborator, Neil Adams. That was a gigantic event, amazingly fun, another transformative comic. He also had runs on Justice League that were phenomenal. He created the Armageddon 2001 event. And if you're a Batman fan, Denny O'Neil created and or co-created, Ra's al Ghul, Talia al Ghul, Leslie Tompkins, Azrael, Richard Dragon. He didn't create Jason Todd, but he was responsible for his death, however you feel about that. Also, the modern-day versions that we know of the Joker, Two-Face, huge figures in the Batman canon, who had, prior to Denny O'Neil, just like Batman, been a touch out of date, bordering even on silly. He made these characters threatening, complex, gave them motivations, reinvented them from the ground up, made the Joker. Again, this is how I learned to read, was Denny O'Neil's Batman comics. I promise you, he made the Joker terrifying. He also had a good run over at Marvel Comics. He was an editor there. Flo Steinberg dared him to spike Stan Lee's coffee with LSD. He didn't do it, but what a life. He was the man who hired Frank Miller to try taking on Daredevil. That worked out pretty well. He was involved in creating characters including Hydro Man, Obadiah Stane, Madam Web, Lady Deathstrike, and he was heavily involved in the conception of the Transformers. He is the one who gave Optimus Prime his name. Denny also had a ton of TV credits to his name, writing episodes of Superboy, Batman the Animated Series, Logan's Run, G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, and more. In addition to those aforementioned comics writing courses that I'll always regret not having taken, Denny O'Neil's passion for teaching the art of comic book writing extended to writing books on how to write. He wrote the DC Guide to Writing Comics, which I've got on my shelf and is a great read, incredibly informative, and a great look inside this man's creative mind, how he himself did all that wonderful writing for these many decades on so many characters and so many titles. I never got to meet Denny O'Neil. I know many who have worked with him for years and years, and I've never heard a single bad thing about him. Only that he loved to write, loved to create, loved to mentor. Only Denny O'Neil and Archie Goodwin are people who I've only heard described in glowing terms. And they're both gone. It's always sad. It does seem that he had a wonderful life and lived it to its very fullest. And for that, we should all be really happy. He sets a great example for creativity, humor, sharing his knowledge and talents with the world, and being brave, experimenting, caring about social justice, and injecting it in full into comics as a whole and to many specific comics. As I said, I strongly encourage you to pick up the run of Green Lantern and Green Arrow that he did, along with co-creator artist Neil Adams. It redefined both characters in ways that echo to this day. And late in life, he was recognized for his many contributions. The Jimmy Carter Presidential Library honored him, naming him the key speaker at the Comic Books and Social Justice Weekend in December of 2018, and Phoenix, Arizona declared May 25th of 2019 Dennis O'Neil Day, honoring everything he's done to contribute to society, to the art form of comics, and his overall creative impact on the world. If I were to pick a favorite Denny O'Neil project, character, or run on a comic, it would be very difficult. Probably the first title that leaps to mind is The Question, simply because that was such an amazing title. Did so much to make modern comics what they are today. I loved the way he brought out an alter ego, a third alter ego in Batman. There's Bruce Wayne and there's Batman, but when Batman needed to hit the streets, get information, be a criminal, to intermingle with the ugly crowd that he needed to infiltrate, he had yet another alter ego, that of Matches Malone. A kind of hokey, absolutely, sort of 2D film noir type character. Funny, smart, and street level. That was all Denny O'Neil's creation. The introduction of Dr. Leslie Tompkins in Detective Comics number 457. The title, There Is No Hope in Crime Alley. So much of what is explored there. Batman's obsessive need to fight crime and the reasons why. We all knew this stuff, but it was never explored, fleshed out, and made psychologically whole until Detective Comics number 457, written by the great Denny O'Neil. Denny is also why Tony Stark, Iron Man, became an alcoholic, fought his own demon in a bottle. O'Neil wrote that, introducing Obadiah Stane, who destroyed Stark's life, became Ironmonger. This is all, I'm sure, familiar to you if you watched the first Iron Man movie. That was all drawn from Denny O'Neil's run on the title, as was Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of the character. The Green Lantern, Green Arrow run, that left a serious imprint on me. Helped me, as a young man, establish what I thought of and how I prioritized social justice in the world. I'm sure that's true of millions who read O'Neil's work. My personal favorite O'Neil project probably changes quite frequently as I read and reread various comics, and the creative imprint he has left, well, hopefully people will continue to build and grow upon it. He changed comics forever, again and again and again, and he'll be missed. Denny O'Neil, a life well lived. He has all of my admiration, and his family and friends and loved ones have all of my sympathies. Been reading a lot of wonderful stories about what a fun guy he was to work with, how much he helped people, and how brilliant he truly was. in the feeds of his friends and family all over Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms. It would be hard-pressed to find a better lived life. Thank you as always. Please do feel free to leave comments and follow me on social media. There are links as to how you can do that in this episode's description, as well as links that will help you support this podcast if you're so inclined. If you're checking this out on YouTube, please like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Or if you're listening on a podcast app or network, please do subscribe there. I'd love it if you left me some reviews. Those are always welcome. And I will talk with you soon.